Since the discovery of oil in the UAE, it has been one of the fastest countries to develop from a simple desert settlement into a massive and beautiful metropolis. However, these expenses come at no light cost, both to nature and mankind. The question is not if nature has suffered, but rather, how much will we feel the effects of pollution in the UAE? Despite the massive efforts of the UAE to combat air pollution, will it be enough for us to breathe green and clean air? Or will we face the effects of air pollution? After the discovery of oil in the UAE, it is one of the fastest countries to transform from a hot Sahara desert to a well-developed metropolis. This discovery, however, has created a new issue for the country, with a multitude of ongoing construction projects, power plants emitting massive amounts of smoke, and more cars on the street. No doubt the UAE is facing the threat of rising air pollution levels. Is the air of the Middle East's rising star going to be a threat, or will the massive efforts of the UAE's government be enough to counter it?
Due to industrialization, air pollution levels have exponentially risen over the past century. Nowadays, things like transportation, electricity, and fuels are one of many necessities in our lives. Burning fossil fuels such as coal and oil are needed for these essential needs to exist. In contrast from urban areas, rural areas, specifically in farms, has also contributed to this change. Noxious chemicals like pesticides and fertilizers are used for these agricultural activities. These chemicals are also a prime example of what causes air pollution. Air pollution can cause lethal consequences to our body and adverse effects on the environment. Inhaling these toxic compounds could damage your lungs. Some common examples are asthma and lung cancer. While on the other hand, air pollution can also affect the environment, ranging from polar caps melting to severe weather effects like heat waves and droughts.
Serve and experience here in Abu Dhabi, there are lots of construction sites now ongoing. So one of the causes of this air pollution is coming from the machineries, which they emit carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide coming from the fuel in which they are using the diesel. Some also coming from the dust from excavating these materials, coming from the excavated material. And some also coming from the materials itself, the construction materials itself, in which from the cement, from the aggregates, and also there are chemicals also that causes also the air pollution, which the by burning some plastics, the cleaners, the oils. And this leads to evaporation, and this leads to air pollution.
I think yes, because of how many cars there are here, which of course it factors into air pollution. You can also talk about how the UAE consume a lot more energy than most other countries, especially considering its size and population. It consume more than other countries, and this lead to more air pollution in the UAE.
Basically, we use the fossil fuels to power the power plant. If I can put it in simple terms, I will say that natural gas, for example. We use natural gas, we burn the natural gas, and that is what powers the generator with its heat. But also the heat has to come out. Where I work, there is pollution because of the fossil fuels. And everyone knows in basic science, you burn the fossil fuels, there's smoke that comes out, that smoke gives you air pollution, and that does not help the environment, that does not help the air. That's why there's air pollution. That's the big source of air pollution in the power plant.
Pollution in the UAE is unclear even on the internet. For example, an article on Emirates Woman dated June 28, 2015, stated that the World Bank ranked UAE's air pollution higher than India and China, both of which are not popular for their air quality. Additionally, the country is said to have consumed much more energy per capita than China and India combined. On the other hand, another article in Khaleej Times, posted 9 months after the article in Emirates Woman, claims that Dubai, the most industrialized city in all the Emirates, and so hypothetically the UAE as well, is clean air and is far from Delhi and Beijing. They countered the statements that there is a lot of particulate matter in the air. They said that most of it is sand, which is harmless compared to chemical particulate matter.
I think it is arguable because you are considering the sand. The sand, it is not as harmful as chemicals. You will think between sand and chemicals you will prefer to breathe the sand, but if you have a problem with the respiratory system or your heart or whatever, it is still going to be a problem, the sand, and to this end it is pollution.
Of course, it's the goal of the power plant to reduce emissions as much as possible, but to be honest, it's not our priority because, of course, we are a power plant. Our goal is to produce energy. It is to make as much energy as possible. If we make it our number one goal to to reduce emissions, then what's the point of the power plant? We could just turn it off and there would be no emissions at all. The point of the power plant is that we produce the energy, and unfortunately with the energy there's the byproduct, which is the smoke, and the smoke causes the air pollution, but it's necessary for the reactions to occur, and the fossil fuels cause this byproduct, and we are running on fossil fuels.
When people think about air pollution, they are mostly thinking about the smoke or the power plants or how it is always a man-made fault. Most part this is true, but not always. The UAE is a victim of natural pollution. The sand, when there are sandstorms for example, it can pollute the air. Not as much as chemicals of course, but it can pollute the air. It can bring problems to people who have respiratory or heart problems again. But also yes, you are also going to be able to blame most of it on the fact that the UAE has a lot of cars. A lot of cars means a lot of fossil fuels being used and a lot more demand for fossil fuels. I think the UAE probably has the most cars per population in the Middle East, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Of course it's a good thing for convenience, but for the environment it's not something good.
Dapat kasi yun, di ba?
Yes, there are ways to reduce pollution. Actually, the Abu Dhabi municipality has implemented the policy. This is the EHS policy, the Environmental and Health and Safety Policy. This is for the protection of the environment and the conservation of our natural resources. And one of the aims of this policy is to ensure the safety of all the workers and those living near and within the vicinity of the construction area.
Thank you, Mr. Paterno, for giving us your time for the interview.
Thank you also.
Despite the numerous things that contribute to the UAE's air being polluted, the government is determined to reduce emissions and the rate of air pollution to its bare minimum. so long that it stays that way. The citizens of the Emirates can live free from the fear of hazardous air and can breathe freely at no expense to their health. We can then expect that this young nation will give paramount importance to its environment despite the demands it has to satisfy in terms of energy and economy. Whether or not the UAE will keep its efforts up, only time will tell. But until then, breathe easy.